This episode of the 46 of 46 podcast is sponsored by Crua Outdoors. Camp comfortably with the world's best insulated tents and outdoors gear. Check out their tents, sleeping bags, pads, and more at cruaoutdoors.com. That's CRUA outdoors.com. Crua Outdoors, the best night's sleep you'll have in the wild. It's 20 degrees out here, and day one of the Northville-Placid Trail is officially underway. We're coming up to the Aluska Lean-To, walking along the cold river, and it is raging today. We're here at the Noah John Rondo Hermitage, 2 miles out from Catlin Bay at Long Lake, climbing up towards the scenic viewpoint, and it is steep. We're walking between the Seward and Santanoni ranges right now. Well, it is a winter wonderland back here at Duck Hole. Crossing the suspension bridge over the Sacandaga River, it's a quiet, peaceful evening here at Spruce Lake number 3. Well, we woke up covered in 2 inches of snow here at the Kelly Point Lean-To. Passing the Cedar River flow, sunny day at Stevens Pond. We're building our campfire early here at Silver Lake to fight off the bugs. Wow. Dude, I have no idea how we're going to cross this swamp. Just walking down the road here in Piseco. Well, I guess it's time to take off the boots and cross the West Stony Creek. 1 mile to Lake Placid, 1 mile left to Northville. You're listening to the 46 of 46 podcast, the Northville-Placid Trail Edition. The Northville-Placid Trail. Day 5. Wakely Dam to Spruce Lake number 3. May 13th, 2020. A couple weeks after completing my last section, I was back on the Northville-Placid Trail to do some backpacking. This time I had a different hiking partner, however, a person you've heard mentioned a number of times on this podcast, Jonathan Zaharek. Jonathan only got back into town at 8 p.m. Tuesday night after being away for a couple months, and then we were in the car driving to the trail at 4 a.m. Wednesday morning. A mere 8 hours after he got back to Lake Placid. So a big props to John for coming through in the clutch and accompanying me on this leg of the journey. The weather was expected to be clear for the next few days and slightly warmer, as far as spring in the Adirondacks is concerned anyways. So I was determined to knock out another section of the NPT. And since I'm sectioning this trail, due to life logistical reasons, I broke this one up once again via easily accessible roads and drop-off and pick-up locations. As of this point, I'm halfway done with the trail, and I've hiked one side of the Northville-Placid Trail map in its entirety, which Josh and I went northbound on, and now it was time to flip-flop the trail, and I was going to hike the other half of the map, southbound. Why, you ask? Again, based on various logistical reasons for people helping me out with the drop-off and the pickups, and also because it's punk rock and why not? Why not do half the trail northbound and half the trail southbound? So once again, I was back at the Moose River Recreation Area at Wakely Dam. The sky was blue and clear, and the snow covering the ground and the trees was white and fresh. Yes, it is May. And yes, we got an inch of snow again the evening prior. And in fact, we got that inch of snow in about a single hour of time between 7 to 8 p.m. the night before, and then it just stopped. But such is spring in the ADK, even in the month of May. There was nothing we could do about it but start hiking, so snow and all, John and I were packed with our layers, and it was time for another section on the NPT. My plan for this third section of the Northville-Placid Trail was to hike from the Moose River Recreation Area at Wakely Dam to the Route 8 road crossing in the town of Piseco, 38 miles away. We planned to complete this section over 2 days, and the goal for today was to hike to the West Canada Creek Lean-To, roughly 18 miles away, then assess how we feel and decide on the day if we want to push it another 4.5 miles down to Spruce Lake. The end of this 2-day section will mark 100 miles complete here on my Northville-Placid Trail journey. Despite the obnoxious snow we received the evening before, I felt okay about it because I knew the sun would be out today and it would melt the snow eventually during the day. But the morning was going to involve some light snow on the trail and all around the forest. Which, to be honest, was okay because the light snow looked really nice around the woods from an aesthetic standpoint. Snow on the ground and the trees, but the lakes weren't frozen. Kind of like the early snow during the end of the fall season. Once again, I was able to recruit my dad to help me out with the driving. So he brought us all the way from Lake Placid to Wakely Dam. We started hiking at 6:20 a.m. as we walked through the yellow gate at the Moose River Recreation Area down Cedar River Road, 1.3 miles before turning left onto the trail. It is Wednesday, May 13th, 6:18 a.m. Section 3 today here on the Northville-Placid Trail. We are back at the Moose River Recreation Area near the Cedar River flow at the Moose River Plains Wild Forest. We are just getting dropped off back here where we started last time. However, we have hiked half the map, and now I'm going to hike the other half of the map southbound. So the first half was northbound, this half is southbound. I got my buddy Jonathan Zaharek here to hit this section of the trail with me. And welcome to Moose River Plains. Here we go. Now we're walking along a dirt road for 1.3 miles until we'll bang a left into the woods. Oh, and also, it snowed last night, so everything is covered in snow. And yes, it is the middle of May in the Adirondacks. It's always funny to look back at the time starting a new section. How our feet feel great, we're excited, we take a picture, we're big smiles, and then compare it to the end, 40 or 50 miles later, when you're feeling a wee bit grizzled and dirty. But we felt good. The temperature was in the 20s, but would warm up to the 50s later in the day. Our day started with a walk down a dirt road, so nothing too exciting to mention other than that we saw a turkey cross in front of us and, once again, lots of moose tracks frozen in the road. The woods were quiet, as you'd expect, and then 1.3 miles after we left the Moose River Rec area, we turned left at the trail sign into the woods. A perfect warm-up for the morning. Well, we've been enjoying a nice, lovely morning walk down this dirt road as the hardwood forest all around us is covered in snow. Fresh snow from last night. And yes, once again, it's the middle of May, but we're finished with the dirt road. We're about to turn left into the woods. Trail sign in right here and a gate. Now we're back into the snow-covered woods walking. 20 minutes into the day. And here we go. This entire section, more or less, takes place in the West Canada Lakes wilderness, and the woods at this point were a nice mix of spruce and hardwood trees around the forest as the trail makes its way down to the Cedar River flow, a nice, large, and remote Adirondack lake. So we're about 40 minutes in, walking along this trail that may have been a logging road at some point, probably was, or a tote road of some sorts. But we are at the Cedar River flow, which is on our left, which is actually like a big lake, it looks like, but it's really nice. Mountains above it. Sun is shining. The trail is so far so good. A little bit of blowdown, but nothing really to speak of. So far so good. And shortly into the hike, you'll quickly arrive at a tent campsite only half a mile after entering the woods. This campsite was very well maintained and had some terrific log benches, which this morning had a dusting of snow across them, but they were very nice nonetheless. So we just made it to a very nice campsite here along the Cedar River flow. This would be a really solid spot to hang out. No lean-to or anything, but really cool campsite. I'm even taking pictures of the log benches that they've made. There's stacked wood, nice and open. This would be a nice peaceful weekend if you wanted to come out here to this campsite. Really solid. We got Pillsbury Mountain across the water here, poking out. A lot of snow on it, unfortunately. But there's a fire tower up there. And I think we're going to continue walking along this very defined logging road here on the Northville-Placid Trail. The campsite is right on the water and has great views of Buck Mountain across the lake and Pillsbury Mountain to the south, which has a fire tower on top. We arrived here about 45 minutes into our day, so we didn't stay too long. Just enough time to enjoy the perfect sunny lakeside views, and then we kept walking. The trail on this entire section of the hike from Wakely Dam to Piseco was extremely well marked, and the trail for the most part was a true delight and very easy to follow. So that was great. And a lot of the trail, especially on this early portion today, runs along what must have been logging roads back in the day. Nice and wide and obvious to follow. And of course, the blue NPT trail markers scattered perfectly along the trail. The forest was white and green as the morning progressed. Snow slowly started to melt in more open places, but the trail still had the dusting on top until later in the afternoon. We are 3 miles in. We are in a Holy mackerel, we are in a big spruce forest. Lots of little trees down that looks like little teepees literally everywhere in the woods, blown down. And then it looks like we have a little Christmas tree farm over here. Little spruce trees line the sides of the trail, but super wide and very easy to follow thus far, and the little bit of snow on the ground has not been problematic, thankfully. A really nice trail so far now, but we've wrapped around the Cedar River flow and we are moving further into the woods, getting more remote by the step. And there's no bailout point at this point. We either go turn around, go back to Moose River, or we keep going to Piseco. So there's no way out here, and we continue south on this leg. While we walked along the trail, enjoying the nice woods all around us, we came to a mile stretch through an old spruce forest, the type where there's lots of fallen trees crisscrossing in every which direction in the woods, looking like teepees and tree structures everywhere. And we kept noticing both large and medium-sized spruce trees broken off and laying along the trail, or stuck upside down in the trees directly next to the trail. But at least a dozen times when we saw one, there was always another one exactly 10 or 15 feet away up the trail, always in pairs. And what both John and I found odd about these trees is they were fresh breaks for starters, and we could rarely figure out how these spruce trees could break at the points in which they were broken. Very strange. The trees were all snapped off their limbs higher up, maybe 10 or 12 feet up every time, with no sign of anything that could have fallen or broken it off. And it also doesn't seem like something heavy wind would have done either, but who knows. It was very odd and became one of the questions of the day for both of us as we kept seeing these broken spruce tree pairs all along the trail. But we kept walking along this well-defined, enjoyable trail that was often lined with tiny spruce trees and moss on the sides of the dirt footpath. Since the trail was so nice and fast-moving, we were cruising to begin the day, averaging 17-minute miles as we move along and wrap around the Cedar River flow, and then we came around a bend and out to a swampy marshland that would stop us dead in our tracks, just north of the Carey Lean-To. The trail was under at least a foot of water with no easy way to cross as it traversed through the marsh further than we could see. Clearly, it was going to be a challenge. So we're about 4 miles in, a little over 4 miles, and we're at this swampy, very wet floating logs type spot right now. So we're trying not to get wet, but it's a little challenging. But here we go. I don't know how to not get wet. I know, but it's like super broken. Here we go. All right. That was a lot of work for one step. Oh, I bet it was. Okay, stepping on some down trees here in the swamp. Oh, if we go in, we're in. This sucks. We arrived here at 7:45 a.m., which was less than an hour and a half into our day, and I thought to myself, damn, it is way too early to hike with soaking wet feet.
My feet are already wet.
If you've ever been to the floating logs on the Lake Arnold Trail in the high peaks, it's a similar vibe to that area.
There's nowhere to step.
Though this has probably had no trail work done in at least 15 years. The trail through the marsh has old logs buried in the water. Although I think John would agree with me when I say I don't know if they could really be considered logs anymore. Maybe one day they were considered logs, but not so much anymore. They've been under the water for a little too long. A little too deteriorated to be considered logs.
The water's at least 6 inches deep.
But the trail goes through it. So we began hiking through the marsh, stepping on the occasional log that we could, getting the boots a little wet, then stepping to the side of the little standing river that was the trail, where we'd walk along the side, clinging to the trees for a few feet, praying the branches don't give and make us fall completely into this 12-plus inch deep mucky mess.
This area could use some logs that aren't 20 years old.
Every step was a challenge and required planning out meticulously, too. Sometimes crossing over to the other side of the little swamp, grabbing a dead down tree and trying to use it as a footbridge to walk along for a few feet or to cross over to the other side with it. It was incredibly slow moving.
I'm just going.
And wet.
And I'm super wet, but that was the only way to get
Looking back, I almost feel like we should have just rolled up our pant legs, put on Crocs, or gone barefoot, and just walked through it and then cleaned up later.
mackerel.
But then again, who knows what's under that water and how deep it really is.
This log is spinning as I'm standing
This
on it.
portion was without a doubt the slowest and most challenging stretch of the NPT that I experienced.
We really just have to get to, like,
But we